Hey guys, so I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I was really excited when I found out that we have a proper full-length trailer for the Fantastic Beasts 3 movie, and there's so much to talk about. But before we get into this, let me just say something that is going to offend a lot of people, and that's not my intention to offend anybody, but I just want to be honest. I really do not like Albus Dumbledore. I'm just being honest. I sort of hate his character. Look, I don't think that he's evil. I don't think that he wants to purposefully hurt people. But at the same time, I think he does things that are really dodgy for what he considers to be the greater good. You know, like he left baby Harry at the Dursleys. And yes, I get that there was a blood pact, so he had to be there for protection. But he easily could have said to the Dursleys, hey, make sure that you're treating Harry good, like make sure that he's not abused, or I'll turn you into a toad. You know, he could have done something. He could have put some sort of charm on them to make sure that they treated Harry okay, but he didn't. And he never checked up to see that he was being raised well. He basically just left him there with what even McGonagall said were the worst sort of muggles. And he left Sirius basically to rot in Azkaban, even though he knew what sort of person that he was. Well, he is somebody who tried to murder somebody, because any fan of the series knows Sirius tried to kill Snape, and Dumbledore also didn't really do anything about that. So yeah, there's a lot of, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I just think there's a lot of things that point towards Albus not being a very good man at heart. And I think he is somebody who sort of presents himself as being this grandfatherly, sort of kind old man, but at heart, what he is a warlord. You know, he'll do anything to win the war, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in terms of how he treats people, I just don't think that he's that good a guy. So to play devil's advocate, when it comes to Grindelwald, okay, so he is a bad guy. I'm not saying that he's not. I know he does horrible things, but at the same time, you could almost justify what he is doing is actually for the greater good as well, because think about this in terms of the magical world. With the internet and everything, all the technology that the muggles have, all it would take is putting one video on YouTube or whatever, and that's it. The magical world is exposed, and let's face it, the muggles would win with all their bombs and guns and technology. They would destroy the wizarding world. So Grindelwald, he may not be doing, you know, things in the proper way. He may be doing things that are really horrible, but I sort of agree with what he's trying to do, which is keep the wizarding world safe. So yeah, maybe I'm sort of seeing things back to front as to what the movie wants me to see them like they want Dumbledore to be the hero and Grindelwald is the straight up villain. But yeah, I'm just sort of seeing shades of grey. Anyway, so let's talk about Tom Riddle. So I'm not saying that I think Tom Riddle is going to be in this movie, but I have seen somewhere, don't ask me where because I forget, but I did read an interview where they said he could possibly be getting introduced in another movie. So that means that we could be getting another Fantastic Beasts movie, or I don't know what they're planning to do, but obviously the timeline does sort of match up as to when a young Tom Riddle would have been in the orphanage, and it would be really cool to see more of his backstory because he's a character that I find very complex and interesting. And I would also really love a Cursed Child movie. I know that's another unpopular opinion, but I think that would be a really great movie. Anyway, so I think that it's really interesting to see that we're getting to see more of Albus and Aberforth's relationship. Obviously, since Ariana, Dumbledore's sister, was killed in the duel, they do not have a very good relationship. And that's another thing that sort of annoyed me about Dumbledore. He basically had this sister who had been terrorized by muggles because, she was caught doing magic in front of them and they did horrible things to her. It's not stated what they did and I don't really want to think about it, but basically they mentally crippled her, so Albus was stuck sort of being the caretaker, and I get it, he's a young, brilliant teenager. He wants to go and explore the world and go and travel with Grindelwald and do all these things. I get that, but at the same time, I just felt like he sort of didn't really care about his family, so I feel like Aberforth has a right to be so angry with him, so it'll be really interesting to see that dynamic between the brothers being explored further in this movie, because we do see Aberforth briefly in the other Harry Potter movies, but very briefly. So I think it's really interesting that we're going to see more magical lands, because so far we've only really seen, we've seen England, and I'm having a complete mental block right now. We've seen another land, New York. We saw New York, obviously. But there hasn't really been a lot showed when it comes to what we're going to see in this movie. We're going to see Brazil. I think we're going to see an Asian country like Japan, I think it was. So that will be really interesting. And Jacob. So we see Jacob with a wand. So I don't think that he is going to be magical. I think that he's probably going to have a wand to sort of pretend that he's magical. But then again, he's in Hogwarts, and I thought you had to be at least a squib to be able to see Hogwarts. So I don't know, maybe Albus lifted the protection so that he could see it, and the trailer's sort of a misdirect. But I sort of like the fact that he's a muggle, not a magical, because it sort of adds this really interesting element for these people that haven't really had a lot of interaction with muggles to be confronted with one who's helping them fight a war. It's just really interesting. So I think we see in this Grindelwald choking Credence. And I think this is a sign that Credence isn't going to be doing what Grindelwald wants him to do. And that makes sense because Credence isn't an evil character. He's just somebody who's in a lot of pain and is being exploited by Grindelwald. So I think, I don't think that Albus knew about Credence if he really is his brother, which honestly I don't think he really will be. I think somehow Grindelwald would have warped and twisted the story to harness Credence's power to use against Albus, but it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. And we see this giant scorpion attacking Theseus and Newt, so that'll be interesting. It's once again the concept of brothers that don't really get along, because Newt and his brother have a very tense relationship, just like Aberforth and Albus. So we see it's sort of like that giant spider scene, I think it was in Lord of the Rings. So that'll be an interesting scene. So yeah, I like that there's a lot of humour in this, a lot of action. Hopefully they go more into the backstory of a few characters. So let me know your theories down below, what you think is going to happen in this movie, what you're excited to see. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to see more from me, like, comment, all of that stuff. Thanks guys.